the first thing I'd say is new numbers just came out very recently, and they show that there was a gain that's 2 years ago, and there's a gain in the year following it. They didn't catch up entirely, but they're now at the highest level of ridership in the subway system in 40 years, which is really incredible, because there are all these factors like the Great Recession and people out of work that you would think would impact on it. But the subways, we have something that scores of American cities would give anything for a transit system that can move workers and customers and tourists around town fairly quickly and cheaply. So the news is not as bad as I had portrayed it. Well, on this one, I tend to take the MTA at its word. They're funded in a way that makes them very sensitive to the economy. So they get about a little over half their funds from the riding public, from the fare box, and also from tolls, so that they operate a whole bunch of bridges and tunnels in New York City. But they're also funded by a series of dedicated taxes: a tax on corporations, a tax on gasoline, the sales tax, and a series of real estate taxes. And the theory is, and I think it's a good theory, is that everybody who benefits in some way from transit, not just the riding public, but the businesses whose customers get moved, and real estate whose values are directly tied to the existence of the transit system. So anyway, those taxes have done badly in the economy, particularly the real estate tax. In 2004, 2005, it was raising $1.5 billion a year. You may have read that they sold, when they sold Stuyvesant Town and Peter Cooper Village, there was a $52 million windfall to the MTA, that sale alone, and it didn't turn out to be such a good deal. So that tax was producing $1.5 billion, and last year it produced $400 million. And so, I have sympathy for the MTA, because most people think they have two sets of books, that they're hiding their finances, and they have a lot of money. And you see, every day, millions of people go into the system. So you think, well, why can't it be self-supporting? What's the problem? There is no subway system in the globe that's self-supported. They all need financial help from their governments. And part of subsidizing transit is to encourage economic activity and growth, and to get people out of their cars, which in my view makes life. It's one of the things in New York that I really do not like. Just the honking and the tension crossing streets and the traffic jams. And I don't own a car, but so I feel these things as a pedestrian. So and one other reason why they're in big financial trouble is that when the Democrats were in power in the 80s, they would tax and spend. So they were responsible. They came up with new taxes to fund the money to buy things, to buy cars, subway cars, and buses and the like. So the system there would be more capital investment. The Republicans came along in the mid-90s, and they moved to politics of borrow and spend. So under their politics, they didn't have to raise taxes; they just had to borrow a ton of money, and they did. The MTA has a debt ceiling, which is what the state legislature gives it authority to do. Has a debt ceiling to be able to borrow $31 billion. And they have. And they're the fifth largest public borrower in the United States. Only the states of California, Massachusetts, and New York, and the city of New York are ahead. So it's unbelievable. And as a result, in their operating budget is the interest payments on all these bonds. They paid $2 billion in interest payments last year. That's before moving a single person, before putting out a single car, and it wasn't a responsible thing to do. It got us a much better system, which as I said before, I'm very appreciative of, but it also put us in financial hot. This is a great question, because when I hear about the capital program from people, it's not how great we have new subway cars. It's like my train is diverted every weekend, and I can't get from point A to point B ever. And or at my stop, they built a temporary platform 9th Street and 4th Avenue in Brooklyn, because they're working on this viaduct, which is 77 years old, and they closed down a track. And so it seems like an awful lot of work is being done, but the truth is they're going to run out of money to do it at the end of this year, and they need to find something in the order of $10 billion, maybe a little bit less, but $10 billion. And just to tell you what's at stake in the capital program, they have a whole bunch of purchases, and they're all imperiled. So 463 subway cars they were planning to buy. It's not clear they have enough money to buy anywhere near that number. 2,500 buses, and 18 miles of tunnel lighting. I like this example because, who pays attention to the lighting in the tunnel? Like, why do you need it? Well, if the workers are going to go out and fix signals and repair track, they have to see what they're doing. It turns out that in many places in the subway system, our tunnel lighting does not meet OSHA, occupational safety and health standards, for coal mines. So you're talking about a system that's very old and primitive. So those things are at risk, and they shouldn't be, because they're what makes the transit system good, more, certainly way more reliable than it used to be. A statistic I often mention is that during the depths of the transit system's health in the early 80s, trains would break down once every 6,000 miles. And now they break down once every 150,000 miles. And so, the investment paid off. Of course, Tokyo, they break down once every 3 million miles. So there's always the ideal.
What's the timeline for the 2nd Avenue subway?
Well, my favorite joke about the 2nd Avenue subway is that they really should stop building it, because every time they do, there's a recession. But they have 4 major what they call mega projects in the hopper. One is 2nd Avenue. The completion date is December 2016 at a cost of $4.4 billion. And we're talking about 3 stations on the 2nd Avenue subway. The whole 17 station line is like, don't count them being around when they're working on it. They need to find $2 more billion as part of the missing, some of the missing $10 billion. They need to find $2 billion to complete it. And maybe someone could point out what these 4 projects have in common. So 2nd Avenue is December 2016. There's the East Side Access, which is connecting the Long Island Railroad to Grand Central Terminal. That's going to be finished December 2017 at a cost of $7.7 billion. And there's this Fulton Street Transit Center. People may know it down on Broadway, Fulton Street in Lower Manhattan. That's going to be finished in December 2013 at $1.4 billion. And then finally, the 7th Avenue, number 7 line extension, which the city is theoretically paying for, is going to be done in December 2013. So 2nd Avenue, December 2016, Fulton Street, 2013, December, East Side Access, December 2017, and 7th Street, 7th line extension, December 2013. You notice what they all have in common?
December.
Yeah, it's like marked down from $10 to $9.99. I don't think any of those deadlines are going to get met, unfortunately. But those are the official deadlines. They say they're going to do better. They've had a series of station improvement programs. They keep changing the names of them as if that will make it better. But the one they're doing now is, it used to be that you'd be on a list for getting repaired, and the list was based on the number of bad things that they could chalk up at your station. There are 468 subway stations. So it could be like quite a long time, and they have about a 35-year lifespan. meanwhile, you know, your steps could be crumbling, and then they're going to get to you like, you know, 2022. So they're doing the station renewal program. It's the current name, and they rated all the components of stations, like the canopies if it's out of doors, the hood above you, the steps, the railings, the lighting, and the ones that have, you know, really don't do very well will get much quicker attention. So I'm constantly asked this question, like, why can't they do anything about the puddle at City Hall Station? You know, it's like we named it Lake Bloomberg, and you know why it just always appears. It's kind of frustrating if you've reported damage or problems many times and they don't deal with it. I feel very strongly about this one. I have a little story to tell, which is that late in August 1999, they had a terrible rainstorm. And I remember vividly, for a lot of reasons, we held a news conference that day that literally got rained out. And you know, we made a big deal about it, and it didn't really get much attention in the media. We complained about it very loudly. And they said, the MTA said, well, this is a once in every 100-year storm, once in a century storm. So there's no, you know, government can't really be prepared for this. The system can't be at this level that it survives such a storm. And then there was another once in a 100-year storm in 2003 and 2005. And we live in an age of extreme weather. You know, my neighborhood, Park Slope, Brooklyn, we got hit by a tornado. You know, I mean, you know, it's incredible. So they really have to do more, and they are doing more. They appointed a committee. I know that sounds sort of not real, but they came up with very specific solutions. Like, for example, they made the gradings on Queens Boulevard so that they're about half a foot off the ground, and they flood less easily. The street gradings do, and they revamped their map system, because it turned out a lot of people would go to stations to go to the pumping room and they have a map of the wrong station with them. And so they're serious. And the snowstorm, they took such a beating, the trains indoors so they don't get snowed out in the yards, particularly the locomotives, which can be used to clear the track. They have different levels of preparedness, level 1 through 4, and one of their big problems was that they were at the wrong level. They didn't take the blizzard in December seriously, and they created a new level that allows them to do more. This is one where I think they are doing stuff. Well, you know, I mean, it is very challenging keeping a system operating during a blizzard, but you know, New Yorkers largely expect that, and it's, you know, a moment I remember vividly from the city council hearings is that the president of the transit authority was asked if he had any regrets about the way they handled it. And he said, my biggest regret was I was at a news conference with all these top officials, including Mayor Bloomberg, and this was on a Sunday the blizzard really got intense. And he said, you know, don't drive your cars, take transit. And I knew as he said that, he said to me, he said to the whole hearing room, I knew as he said that we couldn't handle it, that we were going to melt down ourselves, and I wish I had told him.